Hello everyone, welcome to Aristo's virtual learning series. Today, with this module, we are going to understand basics for one of the new promising therapy area in MF2. The father of medicine Hippocrates stated that our food should be our medicine and our medicine should be our food. So, what we eat is really very important for a good health. Hippocrates also concluded that all diseases begins in the gut. As you all are aware, gut refers to digestive tract and mainly stomach and intestine. So let's focus on what is there in the gut. Microbes exist everywhere on and in the body. The vast majority of microbes resides in the GI tract known as gut microbiome, which numbers up to more than 1000 species of microbes. There are about 100 trillions of microbes residing in intestine and representing 10 times more bacterial cells than the number of cells in human body. Stomach has poor microbiota because of low pH and swift peristalsis. Even upper two-third part of small intestine, that is duodenum and jejunum, has relatively swift peristalsis and thus contains low number of microbes. From ileum onwards, bacterial colonization or concentration gradually increases. The large intestine, which is also known as colon, is the most heavily colonized part of GI tract. The resident of gut can be fungi, viruses or bacteria, but most of the microbes belongs to bacterial domain, out of which 80 to 85% are actually beneficial or good to human health, while 15 to 20% are harmful bacteria. The examples of good bacteria are like Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus casei, Lactobacillus salivarius, then Bifidobacterium species as that of Bifidobacterium bifidum, Bifidobacterium longum, and S. thermophilus. And bad bacteria as that of Escherichia coli or E. coli, Shigella species, Klebsiella species constitute the gut microbiota. Balance of gut microbiota is a necessity for maintaining a healthy gut. Actually, beneficial microbiota helps to carry out specific functions and also serves to prevent the overgrowth of potentially pathogenic or harmful microbiota and thus minimize the risk of disease. But if these harmful bacteria overpower, they can cause several diseases. Any disturbance in the normal flora can lead to compromised gut function. So, this is necessity to maintain this proper balance of good and harmful microbiota. There are certain factors which can affect the balance of this gut microbiota, such as food. If we consume low diet food, it will affect the gut microbiota. Even if we consume the medicines as that of antibiotic, which will reduce the number of this beneficial microbiota, can affect the gut microbiota. Along with this, the GI disorder as that of diarrhea can affect gut microbiota. And not only this, our food habit, if we consume too much alcohol, smoking, and if we under stress, so these factors are also contributing for imbalance of this gut microbiota. So imbalance of gut microbiota referred as dysbiosis. Whenever there is dysbiosis or imbalance of gut microbiota, the number of pathogenic microbiota overpower the good or beneficial microbes. Dysbiosis is associated with numeric loss of beneficial bacteria, even loss of bacterial diversity in gut microbiota, and which leads to or which provides opportunity for this pathogenic bacteria to overgrowth and overpower over the good bacteria. Dysbiosis is strongly implicated in one of the most common intestinal infection, that is diarrhea. Diarrhea and dysbiosis shares a two-way relation. Dysbiosis is associated with pathogenesis of diarrhea and vice versa. As you all are aware, diarrhea is referred to passage of loose or watery stools. As per WHO, diarrhea is defined as increase in stool frequency to twice the usual number in infants and more than 3 episodes of loose or watery stools per day in children and adults. According to the duration of diarrheal episodes, diarrhea also segregated in other categories such as acute diarrhea, which lasts for almost 14 days. Then persistent diarrhea is a diarrhea where diarrheal episodes are more than 14 days and less than 30 days. Whereas chronic diarrhea refers to the diarrhea which lasts for more than 30 days. As you all are aware, pediatric populations suffer the most because of this diarrhea. And even after advent of antidiarrheal therapy, diarrhea today is third leading cause of childhood mortality in India. And diarrhea kills around 3 lakh children each year in India. Let's understand pathogenesis of diarrhea. Pathogenesis of diarrhea involves increased fluid secretion in the gut. At the same time, decreased reabsorption in intestine, and this leads to the formation of watery stools or loose stools. Now let's focus on acute diarrhea. Depending on the origin, acute diarrhea is differentiated or categorized as infectious diarrhea and non-infectious diarrhea such as antibiotic associated diarrhea. Diarrhea is most common outcome of GI infection. The common cause of GI infection is virus. So viral diarrhea is caused by the viruses like rotavirus, adenovirus, norovirus virus. Not only this, even bacteria is responsible for causing diarrhea, and bacteria such as E. coli, Salmonella species, Shigella species, Clostridium difficile are responsible for causing infectious diarrhea. Along with this, the less potential is protozoa, and protozoa like Entamoeba histolytica or Giardia species are responsible for causing this infectious diarrhea. As per ICMR, 39% of diarrheal episodes are rotavirus induced. Let's focus on some of the facts related to rotavirus diarrhea. Rotavirus diarrhea is leading cause of severe diarrhea in children under the age of 5 years. Out of the total episodes of rotavirus diarrhea, 95% of rotaviral infection occur in children below 2 years of age. And even if I look at the prevalence in pediatric populations, so prevalence in children below 5 years is around 35.5%. Even after the advent of rotavirus vaccine, the incidence of rotaviral diarrhea are quite high, and thereby 22% of total rotaviral deaths in world are contributed by India. Even bacterial diarrhea cases are not less in the Indian settings. The major threats for this bacterial diarrhea are Escherichia coli, which contributes around 53.7%. Salmonella species can lead to 6.3% of bacterial diarrhea cases, whereas Shigella species like Shigella dysenteriae contributes 3.6% and Vibrio cholerae contributes 2%. So out of this, if I talk E. coli, that is Escherichia coli, is a major culprit for bacterial diarrhea. So bacterial diarrhea is happen because of the contaminated food and water ingestion. So if we keep raw food or it is not maintained properly, it can be easily contaminated by the bacteria, and if we ingest this food, this will ultimately lead to the dysbiosis, that is imbalance of gut microbiota. And that's why the opportunistic microorganism like E. coli will get opportunity to overgrow and cause diseases like bacterial diarrhea. So it provides the attachment and invasion of pathogen to the GI tract, and this pathogen then releases toxins which will damage the intestinal epithelial cells, and ultimately leads to diarrhea. Antibiotic associated diarrhea, that is AAD. Antibiotic associated diarrhea results from imbalance in the colonic microbiota caused by antibiotic therapy. Antibiotic associated diarrhea is defined as more than 3 liquid stools in 24 hours that occur in a subject during or even after 6 to 8 weeks post antibiotic therapy. If I look at the prevalence of AAD incidences in children occur up to 25% cases or patient those who are receiving antibiotic therapy. The frequency of diarrheal complication associated with AAD varies amongst the different antibiotic and ranges from 1 to 26%. If I talk about amoxicillin, which contributes high to the AAD incidences up to 23%, whereas penicillin contributes 11%, cephalosporin and macrolide contribute 9% and 8% respectively. So friends, up till now we talk about infectious diarrhea and antibiotic associated diarrhea. And one of the most common factor in both these cases of acute infectious diarrhea and antibiotic associated diarrhea is dysbiosis. So whenever there is a dysbiosis, whenever there is opportunity for bad bacteria to grow, so bad bacteria will overpower and will lead to GI infections such as acute infectious diarrhea and antibiotic associated diarrhea. So in the management of acute infectious diarrhea and antibiotic associated diarrhea along with other management option, the probiotics is one of the most promising option to correct dysbiosis in management of antibiotic associated diarrhea and acute infectious diarrhea. Probiotics. The common term for probiotics is healthy or friendly bacteria. Probiotics are the preparation containing live or viable defined microorganism which when administered in sufficient number alter the gut microbiota by colonization in the host and thereby exerting beneficial health effect in the host. As per WHO, probiotic preparation is one which contains 1 to 5 billion live cells of beneficial microorganisms. Let's understand these beneficial effects exerted by probiotics in the host. So probiotic corrects dysbiosis. So when we administer probiotic in sufficient number, probiotic modulates the structure of gut microbiota, thereby increasing the number of beneficial microorganisms in the gut. Probiotic compete for binding site as well as nutrition with pathogen, thus ensuring adhesion to GI epithelial cells, and also releases the antimicrobial substances such as bacteriocin, thereby resists pathogen colonization and prevents bacterial overgrowth. And thus, probiotic provides protection against intestinal infection. Another important function of probiotic is barrier function enhancement, that is preventing the entry of bacterial toxins and pathogenic bacteria beyond intestinal epithelial cells. So, whenever we give probiotics, probiotics secretes protein and thereby increasing the expression of tight junction proteins at tight interepithelial junction, which maintains the tight barrier or integrity of this barrier and thereby prevents the entry of toxins and pathogens beyond the intestinal epithelial cell barrier. Not only this, probiotics also help in building the immunity. They are known as immune modulators. So probiotics stimulate strong immune response in human being and increases the secretion of protective substances such as antibodies. So let's sum up the beneficial effect of probiotics or probiotics mode of action. One of the major action is related to dysbiosis. So probiotics, whenever they are administered, they ensure the adhesion to the GI epithelial surface. Then they are responsible for competitive inhibition of this pathogen by competing for binding sites and nutrition. Along with this, probiotic also releases antimicrobial substances which are responsible for death of pathogenic bacteria. Not only this, the another area is maintain the damaged epithelial cells. So probiotic prevents the bacterial translocation by improving the tight interepithelial cell junctions and thereby maintains the epithelial integrity. Then third action is on the disturbed immune response. So probiotics stimulate the strong immune function response in human being and induce the production of protective substances such as antibody. Thereby, probiotics also acts as immunity modulators. In this slide, let's have a look on the main species of probiotic which are there in the market. So probiotics are categorized as live bacteria and there are also yeast. One of the example of yeast is Saccharomyces boulardii. Then live bacteria preparation are categorized in the live cells and spores. First we'll focus on live cell and live cells of lactobacillus such as Lactobacillus rhamnosus, Lactobacillus acidophilus, Lactobacillus casei are the promising options in this probiotic family. Whereas live cells of Bifidobacterium species such as Bifidobacterium longum, Bifidobacterium bifidum, Bifidobacterium animalis, Bifidobacterium infantis are some of the example of Bifidobacterium. Whereas Streptococcus live cell as that of Streptococcus faecalis preparations are there. If I talk about spores and examples in the Bacillus family like Bacillus clausii, Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus cereus, then in Clostridium family, Clostridium butyricum. So these are the examples of probiotic. So friends, in this module we took the information of gut microbiota, dysbiosis, how to correct dysbiosis with the help of probiotics, and what are probiotics. So thank you. Stay home, stay safe.